Welcome to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you're listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jason Brewster. Jason is Director of Ventures for the Batten Institute here at the Darden School of Business, and he's also a repeat podcast guest. Jason and I recently connected to talk more about his background, what led him to Darden, the recent iLab incubator class, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my interview with Jason Brewster. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Brett.
It's great to have you back on the podcast. How's your summer been? How's everything going?
Everything's good. It's been a fun year for us, both professionally and personally. And I'm happy to have fall and see the change in weather. One of the reasons we're in Charlottesville and not elsewhere is because we like all four seasons, and it's nice to see things changing a bit and cooling off a little.
I know you've been on the podcast before, but some of our listeners may have not heard your prior episodes. So let's start just by talking about who you are and what your role is here at the Darden School.
Sure. I am the incubator director, among other things. I think my official title is Director of Ventures, and I wear a few different hats around Darden. But mostly for me, I like focusing on and supporting students, alums, the extended student body across grounds at UVA with all things entrepreneurship and startup related.
What attracted you to Darden and the opportunity here to be Director of Ventures and to work with entrepreneurs?
It's been exciting because the students here at UVA and of course at Darden, they bring a lot of intellectual capability to the table, and also have a passion around startup creation and trying to do things to change and better the world. So it's a lot of fun. It's inspiring. I've probably worked with almost 400 founders at this point, and you get to see a lot, and you get to see patterns. And I do feel like we can't necessarily make somebody an entrepreneur, but we can affect their trajectory and share lessons and improve the outcomes. So that's what I hope to do and continue doing.
So I'm curious about the comment, you sort of get to see patterns. What's an example of a pattern that you see, or something that stands out from your time?
So there are many. I mean, I think funding is certainly one, and maybe perspectives that you can or can't do things absent funding. It's a pattern that I see quite often. We, of course, and we'll probably get into this later, use a great framework called effectuation here that helps debunk that challenge for our students. But I also see patterns around founder dynamics, like team dynamics, co-founders. I see challenges around product releases, maybe confirmation bias when people do customer discovery or do what they think is customer discovery. I see often reticence to release new products or to iterate products, and maybe founders holding too closely or embracing their ideas too much and not being receptive to how a product needs to evolve for it to be received in the marketplace.
It's very interesting to think about that. And I think it's a good time to talk about effectuation, because we've had a number of student founders on the podcast recently, folks who were even in the iLab and spent time there. And so everybody talks about effectuation and this model framework that's in place here at Darden. To you, how do you explain effectuation to people?
Well, effectuation to me is about doing and doing now versus creating a number of either actual or mental blockers in your mind. Like, well, once I have X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to do A, B, and C. This is rather saying, well, I can't do A, B, C because those aren't resources that I have under my control, but I can do D, E, and F right now. And so let's do D, E, and F, and then let's see where that goes. And so it's getting you down um, the pathway of action. And one of our entrepreneurs in residence, Anjit from this year, had a good saying, and that was an ounce of action is worth more than a pound of planning, or something of that nature. I'm paraphrasing her, but it action really does in entrepreneurship uh, result in the cycle of learning, iterating, and ultimately perfecting a product for a market.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things, if you listen to how I built this or think about some of these unicorn companies, you sometimes feel like, gosh, you have to have a lot of money to do this kind of stuff. But when I listen to you, obviously you're talking about action. You're not necessarily even talking about funding.
No,
You're talking
you don't
about
really need money. You don't really need money. Well, so for some things you do need money. I mean, if you're going to go and your passion is to introduce a new, let's say, pharmaceutical or anything in the medical world. Like, I think of some of our founders who've gone through the iLab incubator, who have medical oriented startups. And those are pretty expensive to do because when you think of a minimum viable product, the M in that, the minimal, is pretty big if you're going to do something that has a profound effect and profound implications for not living up to its potential. But with many things, you can just start doing immediately. I like to think of the best startups as being those that are hobbies or class projects that the inventor or creator has come to a realization that maybe this hobby does have application beyond just to entertain myself, or maybe this project does have a market potential. And that really becomes the impetus to pulling a startup together and to um, um, subjecting that creation to the discipline of the market.
So I'm curious about what has attracted you to entrepreneurship just generally. Obviously, before your role, like what is interesting to you about working with founders and people who are trying to figure out, do I have something here?
I've been a founder myself many times over, and it's pretty much what I did for the first, I don't know, 15 years of my career is starting businesses. And I have always felt like when it gives you in effectuation, this idea of pilot in the plane, it gives you some agency in what you do in your life, and some flexibility to pursue those things that interest you, where you have a passion, where you may not find an alignment, say through an employer or through other opportunities that present themselves to you.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a founder or have your own business? How did
Pretty
that come about?
much. Yeah. I mean, I was, let's say, um, inclined toward it at a young age. I first started mowing lawns at, I guess, 7 years old or so, first grade. It was a different time, but it was a time when lawnmowers, you didn't have to hold the bar down for them to keep running. And that was kind of my saving grace, because to have a lawn business, the only way I was able to start it was to stand on top of the lawnmower and jump up in the air with the cord. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to start the lawnmower. But I always like to get out there, like the autonomy it provided, having some of my own spending money, and I don't know, working with people on a professional relationship basis.
I appreciate that. I'm always, I like having people share a little bit of their background, particularly, as it intersects with their work and may help them in what they're doing now. So let's talk about the iLab incubator. What is this program? What does it entail?
Sure. It is a program for those who are beyond or trying to go beyond the hobby project stage with an idea. So the basic premise is that we will work with participants in the program to take a concept, something that is approximately a minimum viable product. So it's something presentable, shareable, discernible by a target audience, and put the infrastructure of a business around that. So we provide tools, frameworks. We provide, let's say, the general apparatus to make that into a business. There's one thing to say, have a particular food dish you like, or to put some lines of code together to have, say, a Python script that does something that serves your needs. Taking food, say, to the level of selling it, marketing it, you end up, you're affecting a lot of people. So there's a lot you have to consider around food safety, around distribution, around shelf life, around a lot of things. If it's code based, you have service level agreements. You have to have a methodical approach to fixing bugs that arise, to having workarounds, to it's just a whole different thing. And thinking about the complications, but the advantages of having a company make a lot of sense. And we do kick off the full-time portion of our program with, I kind of think it's the trifecta here at Darden that we have, which is design thinking, effectuation, and stakeholder theory. And if you take those three, the net of those three is something pretty powerful for entrepreneurs. And it's, I think, a big Darden UVA differentiator.
How do you see the iLab incubator fitting in with the other entrepreneurial resources and activities? We talked a bunch here on the podcast about, say, the ECUP, which is the University of Virginia-wide entrepreneurship competition. How does the iLab incubator fit into this landscape?
Well, certainly, there's a lot going on at UVA. There's a new Pan University initiative, but I've always seen the iLab as being the lab for courses, for the academic for-credit offerings at the university. And this is the lab. This is the practical portion of that. Now, the ECUP is, I almost see that as a lead tool. Like, that's the top of the funnel. So people need to be doing ECUP. There's an opportunity to expose your product, get in front of judges, get some valuable constructive feedback on what you're doing, and also maybe get some financial boost to put toward your efforts. But for us, we have a really high overlap. So the crossover between ECUP and the iLab incubator is a lot. So people, typically those who do the ECUP and are successful, or even, let's say, unsuccessful at the ECUP, are those who will make an application to the iLab incubator.
And how do you pick the concepts, ventures that get to be part of the iLab incubator?
So for us, it's really about seeing demonstrated commitment and traction. and seeing that there is an effort to take that leap beyond the project stage, and a strong intent from the founders to ultimately market and sell and introduce their product or service into the marketplace. We also support nonprofit organizations too. So founders who are trying to do nonprofits, again, we want to see that there's a clear value proposition, there's something being provided, and there is some effort to get support from donors, grants, and the community at large.
So tell us a little bit about some of the concepts ventures that were part of the iLab incubator, this most recent class.
Sure. We have everything from low tech to high tech to easy to distribute, hard to distribute, et cetera, et cetera. So we had from Darden here, we had a startup that was providing Ethiopian food, and very cool concept where it's the spices, it's bringing the flavor to your dishes at home, which is a really great idea. To another Darden venture out of the Executive MBA program that is focused on using AI to help write government bids.
Wow, that's the two ends of the spectrum, I would say.
It is. But both with a lot of potential.
So what does the support look like? Say I have a venture, I've been selected for iLab. Like, what am I going to do during the time that I'm part of that class?
Sure. So we introduced a basic framework for the incubator itself, which is a three-phase approach: understand, validate, and accelerate. So the understand phase happens in the spring, where we go through the process of interviewing and accepting ventures in. And the first step of the process is you've got to just get into the system. So you have to be incorporated. If you're not already incorporated, we provide support with legal resources to do that incorporation. We get you in as a vendor for UVA so that you can get paid a grant to participate fully in the program. We also put you together with an entrepreneur in residence and start the process of introducing you to a mentor who will support you. The validate phase is where we largely are supporting founders. We're providing these tools, frameworks, and for this year, it was a remote first program. We anticipate staying that course for at least the near future, which is that we support founders wherever they need to work, whether that's in another city, if it's in a lab at the engineering school, if it is maybe traveling or otherwise, whatever it takes to get their venture. And of course, those who are here locally in Charlottesville are fully supported in the remote phase. I shouldn't say remote phase, but in the remote portion of the validate phase. And we then provide intensive weeks. So this year we had 2 intensive weeks plus a demo showcase, a shortened week. And for those, everybody came in person, and it was full-time programming, some days from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. And we provided sessions, workshops, guest speakers, former founders, former iLab incubator participants, and it was a lot in a short period of time, but it was a terrific opportunity to learn and bond with other founders in the program. And then the demo showcase this year was quite exciting. That was an event that we hosted at the demo night was at the Rotunda, and we had a couple great guest speakers. We had Karen Merrick, who is the Virginia Secretary of Commerce come, and she shared a lot of what she's done as both an entrepreneur and with um, the governor is doing with the Commerce Department around supporting startups in the state. And then we also had the combination of Matt and Christina Loftus, who founded Roback, and they came and shared a lot. And they're also iLab incubator alums, and it was awesome to hear their trajectory and their story following the incubator to where they are today with the shirts like the one you're wearing.
Yeah, you see quite a few of these. They're on ground in Charlottesville. They're comfortable,
Oh,
I
and
will
they're
say.
everywhere. They're in Texas. They're in Colorado. They're in Georgia. When I go there, they're everywhere for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, an incredible story. I'm sure it was fun to have them back and hear their journey to where they are now.
Absolutely, it was.
How do you find the entrepreneurs in residence? How do those people come together?
So the entrepreneurs in residence are those who have both a a unique and appropriate background that fits the demands of our founders. So these are individuals who have been founders themselves, who are investors, who are maybe professionals, but their primary focus has been serving and working with startups. And these individuals come in. It's a great opportunity to spend a cycle with us and to get really deeply involved supporting our founders, much more so than mentorship typically affords somebody.
Yeah, I was curious about the mentors as well. Where do they come from?
Well, so the mentors come from kind of everywhere. They geographically are quite a few are in Charlottesville or Virginia, but they being that UVA and Darden are schools that produce and work with a lot of graduates that live all around the world. As you might imagine, we share the same kind of profile with the mentors as well. So these are people who are East Coast, West Coast, Middle America, everywhere. We also have mentors who are international. So it's a broad geographic mix. I would say the mentors most commonly are prior founders or current operators of either businesses they started or businesses they acquired.
So if I'm in the iLab incubator, how am I working with the mentor and the entrepreneur in residence? Am I just asking them questions as I go along, or are we having meetings? Like, what does that relationship look like?
So with the entrepreneur in residence, that's a much closer relationship that is on a regular cadence of um, group meetings. So the entrepreneurs in residence lead groups of founders for regular check-ins. So those happen um, very frequently. They're on a scheduled basis during at least during the full-time validate phase, and those sessions typically go like this. They start out with maybe some highlights from some teams, any big successes, failures, or otherwise, and then evolve into to general stakeholder updates, like what progress has been made, what is planned for the next period of time till the next session, and anything that impedes progress on those goals. And so it's a good collective, and the entrepreneur in residence leads that, also spearheads maybe making some connections and clearing some of those hurdles for the founder, and as well the um, the others in those check-in groups can be excellent peers and supporters. With respect to the mentors, that is more of a prescribed approach. So the typical engagement is for 3 sessions um, for the founders, for the founding team with a an assigned mentor. And the way those work is it's a um, unbiased new sounding board for what you're doing. So the first session of that is typically where the mentor listens a lot. The second session is where there's a discussion around what can what can be done and maybe recommendations that the mentor has. And the third is to see how those recommendations worked out and close the loop for the mentor and the founder on that relationship. And then it's at the founder and mentor's discretion to continue working together or not.
So you mentioned the breadth of ventures concepts that you're seeing. Are there any trends or hot ideas or like something that you're seeing a lot of? Like you mentioned AI and government contracting. Like, I mean, obviously AI is in the news like all the time. I would expect you to see maybe more tech or AI oriented ideas, but I don't know. Any trends?
No, well, I mean, certainly there are trends. I mean, we will always see a handful of applicants from whatever is the um, the hottest thing. So when it was blockchain, we would see blockchain applicants. When I will say also when it was a hot thing that everybody wanted to get, say, these packaged meals at home. Well, then we'll see that. We'll see and amazingly, like one year we had, and they're both very successful companies now, but we had 2 companies focused on indoor farming. Go figure. So and one has taken the path, as you may know, there's Babylon Micro Farms. They have their system is being installed and deployed right now in Cafe 67. So that is going to be, I believe it's in Cafe 67. I know that UVA dining or Darden's dining program is implementing that. And then Beanstalk is taking a different approach, which is to do large scale and an enormous warehouse and supplying lots of grocery stores and restaurants and large scale indoor farming.
That does seem like a hot topic given climate change and all the conversation in agriculture and hydroponic farming you hear a lot about. I know we've had an executive MBA student graduate who had his own concept in that area and launched his own venture after he graduated. So yeah, it does seem like that might be some of the future of agriculture.
And so when you ask about trends, I think that tends to be more of the trend, is less a trend around products themselves, but more, let's say, societal trends, like around efficiency or productivity or maybe macro issues around inflation or other things that drive a lot of the ideas. So even though you might have a tech idea and a food idea, the kind of underlying macro trends in the economy can be driving actually both of those. So it's it might seem like guns and butter, but it's really there are closer similarities than it may appear on the surface.
So there's some other things in the entrepreneurial ecosystem at Darden that have come up here on the podcast. We've had women come on who talked about the KPI Club. I feel like there's also maybe an ongoing series of meetings within the sort of student founder group, getting people together, sharing ideas. You want to share a little bit more about things outside of the iLab incubator that are also out there for entrepreneurs?
For sure. So we do have a lot happening. I mean, the ecosystem I know best during the school year is Darden's, and Darden has clubs, the Entrepreneurship Venture Capital Club, which incorporates all of the programs, full-time program, part-time program, and the executive program. But beyond that, there are different program specific to each one of those. I know, at least with the professional side, we've been very involved in the experiential learning program that has drawn us in and provided the EMBAs the opportunity to engage in short bursts around their ideas and concepts and see if there's a there. And then on the full-time side, we have opportunities here in Charlottesville around Founders and Friends. So we'll have Founders and Friends that incorporate people from the Charlottesville community and founders in some kind of a social setting. So that's something that's been very popular. We do have courses. We have Venture Velocity, which is run by Jim, and Jim runs that for the Jim Zuffoletti runs that for the full-time program, and that is a course where you learn and you develop the skills around being a founder. And there's a similar course offered to the EMBAs and part-time MBAs, which is Venturing Lab, which this past year I ran that with a couple other folks, with Murray Pitts and with Erica Kehoe. So that's a sampling. We also have the Batten Founder Fellows, which is a really cool new program we're piloting, which is to support founders at graduation. So those who are looking to do their ventures immediately upon graduating and not, say, put it on the shelf to return to later. We provide financial support as well as ongoing coaching and mentorship to them. And this is the first year we're piloting that. We hope to continue doing that program for a while longer as well.
How does somebody get involved with the Batten Founder Fellows? I assume it's application-based. What does it look like?
Yeah, it's an application-based program, and those applications will be available again in the new year in 2025. And the intent is that you're a graduate from you went through the iLab incubator program. You earn a Darden degree. You earn your MBA, and that you are focused exclusively on building your venture. So that's the basic criteria.
So you apply. Do you have to interview for it?
You do, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
You apply. You submit materials about yourself, about your venture, and then we do an interview process for those who have submitted applications.
What was the inspiration for offering that program? Because as you mentioned, it's new, hasn't always been around. Why did you decide to add it?
So the greatest impetus and justification for it is that a lot of students continued to say, well, my dream is to work on my business, but right now I need to get a job. I need to pay student debt or pay other obligations that I have. And I don't feel confident that right now I can focus and work on this business upon graduation. Because a lot of the people who go to Darden have typically a fairly robust set of opportunities professionally upon graduation. Of course, our EMBAs have to make a decision to continue in their current jobs. But if given the opportunity and a little bit of a push, so I think of this program as one of those. It's a nudge. I mean, this is not going to be getting an investment banker or consulting salary. So it's not a direct replacement for that. But for a lot of folks who are passionate about their ventures and who want to work on them full time, this nudge is what can be the deciding factor to say, I'm not gonna accept that opportunity. I'm not gonna go into this job, and I'm gonna work and stay dedicated to my venture. So that was the compelling reason to pursue it, and we actually did. We're supporting three recent Darden graduates in the BFF program, Founder Fellows program.
Nice. You mentioned the Charlottesville kind of ecosystem or connections that you make with people in the Charlottesville community. What would you want people listening to this podcast who are potentially interested in entrepreneurship to know about Charlottesville and the ecosystem and resources that are there?
Sure. Well, I would say Charlottesville as an ecosystem is robust. There's a lot happening here. There are obviously a handful of high net worth individuals who have made a commitment to Charlottesville and to the entrepreneurial community at large. Folks like Jaffrey Woodruff have built a whole building, the Center of Developing Entrepreneurs. I believe that's what CODE stands for. That has awesome co-working space. And David Tuvey heads up the 434 Accelerator that's done in conjunction with the county and city. Tracy heads up CBIC. There's Charlottesville Angel Network. There's Cav Angels. There are regular meetups and really an unlimited number of opportunities to connect with people here. And I find and we find this with our mentors who are in the Charlottesville area, that there's a real willingness to help, to get involved, and to spend time cultivating local founders.
Well, Jason, thank you for sharing all of this. Obviously, a lot of resources for student founders, folks with entrepreneurial ideas, and lots of ways to pursue it, right? We've talked about, you could do the ECUP, you could do something like the iLab incubator. If you have an idea you want to continue pursuing after graduation, you have the Batten Founder Fellows. Like there's lots that's there. Any final advice, something for us, our students who are listening to this, kind of interested in entrepreneurship, anything you would want them to think about as they think about their MBA journeys?
Sure. One of the little nuggets of advice that I like to dispense is that when you're a student here, you are surrounded by a lot of people who you know very, very well. And this is the best time to find co-founders, and it's the best time to introduce a product or service, because you have an audience of people who you know and who know you, and who have such an incredible varied background and networks to share with you. So I think if you want to ever do entrepreneurship, you'd be remiss not to use this time at Darden to dive in and dive deep. You have people who have backgrounds in law, in accounting, in manufacturing, in sales, in marketing, in everything. And why not leverage those individuals, and in return let those individuals leverage you and what you have as your background. And I think it's definitely a multiplying effect. And so think about a business. This doesn't necessarily mean you've got to get 2 or 3 of your buddies together and all of you graduate and do this full time. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it can mean that you start something on the side, you start to see where something goes, and you get your Darden classmates to be some of your first customers and to tell you what they like and don't like about what you're doing.
Well, Jason, great catching up with you as always. Thank you for coming on the podcast. You've been here before. It's always great to have you here, and I hope to see you in Roslyn again soon. It's been fun having you all up here for the experiential learning classes for our executive MBA students, and I think y'all have even made a few trips to come up and connect with the part-time MBA students as well.
You bet. And I am proud to say that in this year's incubator cohort, we had full-time, part-time, and executive MBA represented. We also had participants from 7 schools at UVA, which was awesome, because it really is rewarding to work with a group of people with a wide diversity of backgrounds and perspective and passions. But yep, I hope to be up to Roslyn again soon, and I've really enjoyed my time with all the flavors of the MBA here at Darden.
And that was my conversation with Jason Brewster, Director of Ventures at the Batten Institute here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. And until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.